أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, فإن شاء الله عز وجل today we go through باب القود في الجروح, the chapter on retribution for wounds. تفضل شيخ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر لنا وللشيخ ولوالديه وللحاضرين. قال المؤلف رحمنا الله وإياه في باب القود في الجروح. يجب القود في كل عضو بمثله، فتؤخذ العين بالعين والأنف بالأنف، وكل واحد من الجفن والشفة واللسان والسن واليد والرجل والذكر والأنثيين بمثله، وكذلك كل ما أمكن القصاص فيه، ويعتبر كون المجني عليه مكافئا للجاني، وكون الجناية عمدا، والأمن من التعدي بأن يقطع من مفصل أو حد ينتهى إليه كالموضحة التي تنتهي إلى العظم. فأما كسر العظام والقطع من الساعد والساق فلا قود فيه، ولا في الجائفة، ولا في شيء من شجاج الرأس إلا في الموضحة، إلا أن يرضى مما فوق الموضحة بموضحة. ولا قود في الأنف إلا من المال وهو ما لان منه. ويشترط التساوي في الاسم والموضع، فلا تؤخذ واحدة من اليمنى واليسرى والعليا والسفلى إلا بمثلها، ولا تؤخذ إصبع وأنملة ولا سن إلا بمثلها، ولا تؤخذ كاملة الأصابع بناقصة، ولا صحيحة بشلاء، وتؤخذ الناقصة بالكاملة، والشلاء بالصحيحة إذا أمن التلف. فصل: إذا قطع بعض لسانه أو مارنه أو شفته أو حشفته أو أذنه أخذ بمثله، يقدر بالأجزاء كالنصف والثلث ونحوها. وإن أخذت ديته أخذ بالقسط منها. وإن كسرت بعض سنه برد من سن الجاني مثله إذا أمن انقلاعها. ولا يقتص من السن حتى ييأس من عودها، ولا من الجرح حتى يبرأ. وسراية القود مهدرة، وسراية الجانية مضمونة بالقصاص والدية، إلا أن يستوفي قصاصها قبل برئها فيسقط ضمانها. هذا والله أعلم.
جزاك الله خيرا شيخ. طيب, يسير رحمه الله: يجب القود في كل عضو بمثله، فيؤخذ العين بالعين والأنف بالأنف، وكل واحد من الجفن والشفة واللسان والسن واليد والرجل والذكر والأنثيين بمثله، وكذلك كل ما أمكن القصاص فيه. We spoke about the killing. What happens when the person is killed? What are his rights? What are the different types of killing? Yani murder, intentional, a person who has partial intention, and a person who kills by mistake. And then we spoke other matters to do with killing, if a group of people kill one individual, etc. Now we're going to get to injuries, different types of injuries, and now what is the rights of the people who are injured because of these injuries. What are the conditions for the person to seek out that retribution? When is it overlooked? What are the compensations paid, etc. So there are different rulings for different scenarios, just like there was when it came to killing. The amounts, the diyat, the amounts that are given, we're going to speak about, inshallah azza wa jal, after we get through this chapter, because for the killing and the injuries, some of the diyat are complete, they're the same. And then you get some half and some are a tenth, etc. We'll get to them in its place, inshallah azza wa jal. But he says here, rahimahullah, for each part of the victim's body, retribution is obligatory on its counterpart in the offender's body. Therefore, an eye is taken for an eye, a nose for a nose, and each one of the eyelids, lips, tongue, teeth, hands, feet, penis, testicles for its counterpart, and likewise for every part concerning which retribution is plausible. When it comes to a person injuring another person and you getting retribution for it, there is the option of you getting the qisas, the retribution, or, and we'll get to it inshallah azza wa jal, diyah. Diyah, the compensation for it. Just like in a person killing on purpose, the person can have the qisas, meaning the person is to be killed, or they can accept the diyah, the compensation, the indemnity. Same thing with the injuries. The person can either seek to have the same injury inflicted upon the person who injured, or they can seek the compensation, obviously with the conditions that we'll get to inshallah azza wa jal. The main thing when it comes to seeking the qisas, seeking the retribution, when it comes to the injuries, is that the injury can be easily inflicted on the other person without it causing additional problems. Without it causing additional problems. So, for example, if a person's hand is cut off, and the other person, we can easily cut off his hand, khalas, we cut off his hand. If that's what the person wants, and they were found guilty and the conditions are fulfilled. If a person cuts off a finger, then we can cut off a finger. If a person was to cause an injury where the person lost their vision, then we can remove the vision from the other person. If a person cut off another person's ear, we can cut off the other person's ear, etc. But if there is no way of us being able to inflict the same injury, then it is overlooked and we go to other forms of punishment or compensation. So for example, and we'll get to inshallah azza wa jal, broken bones. If someone breaks a bone of another person, how are we going to break the bone the exact same way? It's very, very, very hard, almost impossible. Now, the way that the bones break, they don't all break the same. Some will break a particular way, some will break in multiple parts, etc. So you go to inflict the same injury on the other person, it's too hard. So it's not plausible. Now, but when it comes to you being able to carry out the injury the same way, then this is when you will find the injuries can be sought retribution for. If not, then you go to other forms of punishment like the compensation. He says, rahimahullah, وَيُعْتَبَرُ, and the matters in which make this a condition to be fulfilled. So if these aren't there, then you can't carry out the qisas. وَيُعْتَبَرُ كَوْنُ الْمَجْنِي عَلَيْهِ مُكَافِئًا لِلْجَانِي. The following must be considered for retribution. So these are the conditions for it to become an obligation. Just like for the killing, there was conditions in order for you to have the killing of the murderer an option. These are also conditions that need to be there in order for it to be an option. Number one, the victim must be equal to the offender. Equal in what regard? In the religion, and on the opinion, slave. Okay, so you have, if a Muslim was to offend against another person and it led to the cutting off of their finger. So now, Islamically speaking, the norm is that the person who caused the injury will also have the injury caused to them. But because the Muslim is considered better than the disbeliever, then that's not an option here. He still has to pay the compensation, he can still be punished by the government, but they're not considered the same in this regard, and so the injury is not carried out on the Muslim. As for if a person from another religion, a non-Muslim, was to injure the Muslim, then it is an injury that can be carried out back on them, because we said the religion matters when it's down. So the Muslim is not sought revenge upon in this regard from a non-Muslim. As for the same or above, a non-Muslim with another non-Muslim, or a non-Muslim with someone above them, a Muslim, then the revenge can be sought. And on opinion, slaves as well. There's difference of opinion regarding injuries to slaves, because there's a hadith, but then there's the explanation of the hadith, which is, we don't need to get into it because we don't have slaves right now. If we have slaves, inshallah, we'll get into the details of it. As for male and female, then that's considered here the same. So if a man was to kill a woman, he can be killed. And if a man was to injure a woman, he can have the same injury taken out on him. Number two, وَقَوْنُ الْجِنَايَةِ عَمْدًا. The crime must be intentional. Obviously, we've said, and the rule is consistent. A lot of the qawaid in the Shariah are muttarida, they are consistent. Okay? There's exceptions sometimes to rules. But one of the rules that is consistent is that when you want to have this type of retribution and qisas carried out on a person, there needs to be intent. The person intended to cause this injury, not by accident. And when we say intended, yani you done an action which most likely would lead to that injury. For example, a person attacked another person with a machete or with a sword, and his hand got cut off, and now he's found guilty, and we're going to cut off his hand. He can't say, no, I wanted to injure him, but I didn't want to cut off his hand. Which you were swinging a sword, aiming to injure him. You couldn't control exactly where you hit, but you were doing something that is likely to cause that injury. Okay, so you here are found guilty. This is amd. It's different to, let's say you kicked a soccer ball, and you're playing soccer, you kicked a soccer ball very hard, and that soccer ball hit a person's finger, and Allah Mabarak is that hard, you ripped it off. Obviously, that's not intentional. Okay, it's not intentional. Or you were walking and you bumped someone, that person fell down, and their left arm became paralyzed. So we don't go paralyze your arm now because it wasn't intentional. But you were doing something which you intended to cause harm to the other person, and this was a consequence of it. La khalas, now you are held accountable for this. Number 3, والأمن من التعدي بأن يقطع من مفصل أو حد ينتهي إليه كالمودحة التي تنتهي إليه العظام. Number 3, there must be assurance that there will not be transgression. This assurance is plausible when he cuts at a joint or when the wound has an identifiable extent, such as the mudiha. The mudiha is a head and face injury that reaches the bone but does not damage it. This is in the cuts. And mudiha, inshallah, will explain a little bit, because there's cuts in the face and the head that we don't go near. Like if a person hits someone with a hammer and it breaks his skull. Okay, we can't, because we said the bones, you're not going to go and break them. So you don't go and seek retribution for that. But the person can request that, okay, just like he cut me open, even though he broke my skull, and we can't break his skull, but I want him to be split open, and the mudiha, tuwaddih. The mudiha is that which is split from the cut, and the bone becomes exposed. Okay, this is one of the types of cuts, especially in the face and head, that there can be revenge sought from. Other types of cuts and injuries to the head and face, we're going to speak about it when we speak about shijaj, the head and face injuries. But the general rule is that when it comes to the bone, we're not allowed to get involved in it. But the mudiha goes to the bone, it doesn't break it or go into the bone. Tayyib. So there must be a guarantee that you're not going to transgress. Someone cut off someone's hand from the wrist. Very, very, very clear, easy. Also, we cut his hand off from the wrist. Someone cut off from the elbow, from the arm. Someone cut off someone's toes. So as a punishment, if they want the revenge, they can easily say, this is where the injury is. This is where we're going to cause the injury to you. Someone took out someone's eye. We can now take out that person's eye as punishment for the injury that he caused. It's very clear and easy to make sure that this doesn't lead to further problems. As for when we're concerned that if we were to do this, take out this particular retribution on this individual, it may lead to worse problems, then you're not allowed to do it. An example, someone injured someone where they lost half their vision. So we say, okay, technologically speaking, can we carry out an operation where we remove half the vision of the other person? If the answer is no, then khalas, they won't do it. Because how are they going to guarantee that they're not going to take out 75% or 100% of the vision? Okay, if they can't guarantee, or most likely it's not going to happen, then it won't be carried out. Now you get to other forms of punishment or compensation. So we need to make sure that it is not going to lead to further problems, or we're going to try our best to make sure that it doesn't lead to further problems. فأما كسر العظام والقطع من الساعد والساق فلا قود فيه ولا قود في الجائفة ولا في شيء من شجاج الرأس إلا المودحة إلا أن يرضى فيما فوق المودحة بمودحة ولا في الأنف إلا من المارن وهو ما لان منه. As for the breaking of the bones or cutting at the forearm or leg, there is no retribution in that, nor is there retribution in the penetrating wound that reaches the hollow interior, like a stabbing, or any of the head and face wounds, aside from the mudiha, which we explained. Someone had a cut in their head where the bone became exposed. Unless he accepts inflicting a mudiha for a wound greater than it. There is no retribution for injuries to the nose except for injury to the ball of the nose, which is the soft, easy part at the end of it. As for the breaking of bones or cutting at the forearm or leg, we said, khalas, this is not going to happen unless it is at a clear-cut joint. So to cut half the forearm, no. Okay, because how are we going to guarantee that it's the exact same? As for if we cut at the joint, yes, we can seek retribution for that. Nor is there retribution for a penetrating wound. Yani someone stabs someone, we then go in, stab him back. Okay, because it's how do you guarantee that you're not going to cause further injury? You stab something, you hit an organ, it creates further problem, etc. So a penetrating injury, you don't get retribution for that. Retribution meaning you can't have it done to the other person. As for again, other punishments, other forms of compensation, this is a different matter. Or if any of the head and face wounds, aside from the mudiha, if someone, again, hit someone with a hammer, and it cut them open and it crushed their skull, or fractured their skull, we do not go near the face and the head because it can very easily lead to other injuries. You go hit the same person with a hammer again, and the guy goes blind because of it. Or he becomes paralyzed. Or it leads to brain trauma. Whatever it may be, we don't do it because it's very easy, can cause further injuries. Except al-mudiha, as we said, because it's easier to prevent further injury. Someone cut someone open and it led to the exposure of the skull. You can do the same. You can cut over to the extent where you can see the wound. And if the person who was injured, he got worse than the mudiha, so he had his skull fractured, as we mentioned, he can ask for the mudiha. We can't fracture his skull, but I want him split open, and I want to see his skull just like I see in my skull. No problem, inshallah. This is a full-time job, by the way. Now, so if any of you are interested, inshallah, in preparation for Sharia state, that's going to get, Allahu Alam, you people in trouble. If any of you are, want to prepare for a Sharia state, an eye for an eye, this is a full-time job, inshallah. Unless he accepts inflicting the mudiha for a greater wound in it, then there is no retribution. There is no retribution for injuries to the nose, except for injury to the ball of the nose. Yani this part here. Someone was to cut off this part of a person's nose, then we can seek retribution for that. Again, because this they consider, even though in anatomy they don't call it a bone, except that in Islamic terms, because of its hardness, it's like a bone. So because in the Sharia, we don't differentiate between things that are similar. In the Sharia, we don't differentiate between things that are similar. So this is like a bone because of its makeup. You break it, how do you guarantee that if you were to break it, you're not going to make it worse than how he broke that person's nose? Now, but this particular part here is nice and soft. Person cut it off, you can cut theirs off, no problem. Not you, the government. ويشترط التساوي في الاسم. This is on the justice of the Sharia. ويشترط التساوي في الاسم والموضع. فلا تؤخذ واحدة من اليمنى واليسرى والعليا والسفلى إلا بمثلها. ولا تؤخذ إصبع ولا أنملة ولا سن إلا بمثلها. ولا تؤخذ كاملة الأصابع بناقصة ولا صحيحة بشلاء. وتؤخذ الناقصة بالكاملة والشلاء بالصحيحة إذا أمن التلف. Equality of the part applies to the name and location. Thus, the right, left, upper and lower parts will only be taken for their exact counterparts. The finger, the fingertip or tooth will only be taken for its exact counterpart. The whole hand with a full set of fingers will not be taken for a defective one, lacking some fingers, before that. So, if someone cut off someone's right hand, what do we cut off from the other person? Their right hand. Someone cut off someone's left arm from the shoulder. What do we take off from the person? Left arm from the shoulder. Someone cut off someone's right shin from the middle of the shin. What do we take off? Sheikh, you're not allowed to answer. Jazakallah khairan. I wanted to see who was paying attention.
Can't take it.
Ahsan, good. We don't take it from the middle of the forearm or the shin or the leg. We take it from the joints. Okay, so we make sure that we got the exact same. But the point here, most of you passed the test. Some of you, I know that we're confused. Some of you are like, no. There's something not right here. He just said something about this, which is good. Okay. If a person has the exact same, then you only take from the exact same. Someone cut off the middle finger of a person. You cut off what? The middle finger, okay? The same, exactly the same. For you to go and choose something else, then this is not yani, from the justice that should be carried out on a person. Then the quality, if you will, okay? The quality of what you take. So the whole hand with a full set of fingers will not be taken for a defective one, lacking some fingers. Let's say someone's got a normal hand, okay? A hand, full set of fingers, and he went with a machete or a sword and he's fighting someone else and he cut off that person's hand. But that person only also had 2 fingers. So is it fair that this person only had 2 fingers? We go and cut off another person's hand who had a full set of hands? No, it's not fair. Okay, so we don't take it if there was a deficiency. But the other way Islamically is allowed. The fined hand is not taken for a paralyzed one. However, the defective may be taken for the whole and the paralyzed one for the fine one, as long as there is assurance that it will not cause death ensuing from the wound. Yani, if the person with 2 fingers, he somehow, don't laugh, my uncle, Allah yarhamu, he got his fingers caught in a meat grinder and he only had these 2 fingers. He should have seen him play cards, Allah yarhamu. It was very funny, but he became very good at it. Now, so, inshallah his kids don't get upset with me. Let's say a person with 2 fingers. Now, let's just use these 2. Okay, we'll pack these ones away. He picked up a machete somehow, or he shot someone. He shot someone. Like, how? Use your imagination. Okay, use your imagination. He harmed someone. Okay, where that person's hand became cut off. He pressed the button. No, that's what it is. He pressed the button and the guillotine fell and cut off the person's hand. So this person who's only got 2 fingers, he cut off the hand of a person with a normal set of fingers, and 5 fingers, hands works normally. We will still, if that person wants, take the hand of this person off. Okay? Because it's lower. It's lower. Just like with the religion, you're not going to take higher. The non-Muslim can't take retribution from the Muslim. Here, same thing. This person is considered on the lower scale, so if the person with a full sort of hand wants, then we can take the lesser off. This is, I know it's a lot of information, and for a lot of people it's a lot of new information, but it's just good for you to understand how it works. You will see a lot of the brothers, a lot of the answers, Allahu alam, Allahu alam, Allahu alam. Why? Because unfortunately we don't have Sharia. It's not something that we do with all the time. But it's just good for you to have in the back of your minds that Islam talks about these things, and there's a lot of details when it comes to these matters, and this is a very simple book as we mentioned. Now, but in a proper Islamic state, this would have a lot of in-depth knowledge about it, and this would be what is judged by. And if a person wants to go to court, this is what we're talking about, whether it's this or another madhab. But the point is, what you're listening to now, this is what would be in the court system. And there will be people to carry all of these roles professionally. There will be the judge, there will be the defendant, there will be the prosecutor, whatever it may be. The trial comes to an end, the person's found guilty, then you go to people that will actually be specialists in carrying out these particular operations, etc. طيب. Mutilation of pieces of body parts. فصل وإذا قطع بعض لسانه أو مالنه أو شفته أو حشفته أو أذنه أخذ مثله يقدر بالأجزاء كالنصف والثلث ونحوهما. Subsection: if one cuts off part of his tongue, tip of the nose, lip, glands or ear, the equivalent will be taken in retaliation. The equivalent will be taken in retaliation. The equivalent is based on fractions such as 1/2, 1/3, and so on. What's the difference between here, this, and between the forearm and the leg, etc.? No bone. Okay, no bone. So, what is the rule? We need to take the exact amount. Sah? We don't want something to happen where we're going to transgress. If we cut off the person's, for example, lower limb, half of his shin, without any break of the bone, can we guarantee that when we cut off his shin, the rest of the bone is not going to be affected? Let's say technology progressed. Maybe there is ways, Allahu alam. Maybe there is ways for you to be able to carry out the exact injury. Then what would we do, Shara'an? We can carry out the exact injury. Okay? But we're talking at a time when the book was written, hundreds of years ago, where they couldn't guarantee that transgression. So these things were easy because it's soft, so we can easily carry out or take out that body part or carry out that injury without causing further problems to the individual. As for the bone, they couldn't guarantee it. If technology advances where the person is able to, then no issue in doing it, inshallah. The equivalence is based on fractions such as 1/2, 1/3, and so on, as we mentioned. He cut off half the tongue, cut off half his tongue. You took off a quarter of the nose, we could take off a quarter of your nose, etc. When أخذت ديته أخذ بالقسط منها. If the indemnity is taken instead, it is proportionate to that. So let's say the compensation for the eye, for example, is 50 camels. Let's say it's 50 camels. So the person says, I as an individual want to take, instead of the diyah, the 50 camels, khalas. He takes the 50 camels, he doesn't get the revenge for the eye. If it is, let's say, the tongue, and the person cut off half the tongue, instead of him receiving the full compensation, he will get half. Just like we would have cut off half, now your compensation is half of what you would normally get. All of it is in line with what the injury is. وإن كسر بعض سنه برد من سن الجان مثل إذا أمن انقلاعها. If one breaks part of his tooth, the equivalent of the broken tooth will be filed off the offender's tooth. As long as there is assurance, it will not be dislodged. Yani, the person punched someone and caused half of his tooth to be broken. What can you do? In retribution, they used to file it down. You can, now with whatever technology they have, you can take off half the tooth of the other individual. Okay, the one who caused the injury. ولا يقتص من السن حتى ييأس من عودها ولا من الجرح حتى يبرأ. Retribution for the tooth is not executed until there is no hope that the victim's tooth will re-erupt, come out again. Similarly, retaliation is not executed for a wound until it has healed. If the person is a kid or they're young, or maybe even very, very, very exceptional with an adult, but you hit him and his tooth fell out. Now we can take your tooth out, but we need to be sure that there's going to be no tooth growing in its place. So if it's a kid and he lost his baby tooth, no, his second tooth will grow out, inshallah. If it's an adult, you can easily do x-rays and see if there's anything hiding in his gums. No, but we need to make sure that it's not going to be replaced, because if it's replaced, this is a different matter. You still have what you lost. You still have what you lost. The reason you're going to get compensation or retribution straight away with the other matters is because you can't grow a back, you can't grow a finger back. No, you can't grow a foot back. It's gone. You can't grow your eyesight back. It's gone. So that's why you're going to get it straight away. As for something like the tooth, then no, we're going to wait to make sure that there's no, or if the medical the technology tells us if you can have it now or not, like x-rays or whatever it may be, if it will grow back. If it won't grow back, khalas, then you can get the retribution. As for if it's not going to go back, then what was lost is going to be compensated by Allah Azza wa Jal, and we can look at other forms of compensation that you can get from the individual. And the retaliation is not executed for a wound until it has healed. Why? Why would we wait until the wound is fully healed before we carry out the execution of the retaliation on the other individual?
In case it flares up or anything happens to it before it heals.
What do you mean flares up?
For example, if you get a cut and then you want to take retribution, but then that cut gets worse and it gets infected, and then your arm gets
good, because sometimes you may have an injury. But that injury worsens through infection or whatever it may be, and it gets worse. So instead of losing a hand, you got an infection, you had to cut off the entire arm from the forearm, from the elbow. So if we were to just cut off the hand straight away, now what about the rest of the elbow? Now what about the rest of the arm for that individual? This is what we're going to speak about, inshallah. That's why what should happen is the person waits until it's fully healed, then you exact retribution to make sure the punishment you take out on the individual is completely and exactly equal to what he caused. He doesn't say here, Allah, he does. طيب. We're going to skip and come back to it. وَسِرَايَةُ الْقَوَدِ مُهْدَرَةٌ. The complications of a wound inflicted in retribution are not compensable. Compensation. You don't get compensation because of it. You cut off the hand of someone else. So now you're found guilty and the judge comes and cuts off your hand. If your hand got infected and then they had to cut off your elbow, you can't say, whoa, 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 whoa. I want the judge or whoever carried out my retribution on me, now I want retribution on him. No. Okay, because obviously they done what they had to take the steps to make sure injury doesn't happen. But it happened. It's your fault for causing the problem in the first place. We didn't come and cut off your hand for no reason. You were guilty. It was your actions that led to that. We had to carry out the punishment. If it happened, we apologize, but there's nothing more than we can do. It's like whipping. Let's say someone carries out the lashing of a person, the hudud, and they lashed them and somehow they got paralyzed because of it. Something hit a nerve and it got damaged and they became paralyzed. There's no compensation given to the person that was punished. Why? Because it was their actions that led to that punishment in the first place. So they have to do with the consequences of their actions. وَسِرَايَةُ الْجِنَايَةِ مَضْمُونَةٌ بِالْقِصَاصِ وَالدِّيَةِ إِلَّا أَنْ يَسْتَوْفِي قِصَاصَهَا قَبْلَ بُرْئِهَا فَيَسْقُطُ ضَمَانُهَا. The complications of the wound inflicted in aggression warrant retribution or indemnity. Like what Abdullah said. That if he cut off the hand, the person who was transgressing, he cut off the hand and then that injury got infected and it led to the cutting off of the entire forearm from the elbow. So the person who cut off only the hand, now he's found guilty also for the elbow. Okay, he's found guilty also for the elbow. Unless retribution is taken before it is completely healed, then there is no further liability for complications that may occur later. Except if the person says, I want him to have his hand cut off now. We say, you wait until it's healed, you don't know what injuries can come later on. He says, La, I want it now. You sure? He says, I want it now. All right, no problem. We cut off his hand. Then if that person's injury, the one who was originally hurt, it went from the infection up to his elbow, he can't say cut off his elbow too now. Even though there is an opinion. There is an opinion. But in general, from what we're taking here, he can't say, I want it because you took your haqq at that time. Now your haqq is given. That was your haqq is given, khalas. You can't say more now. We told you, we gave you the opportunity to wait, you didn't want to wait, then that's it. You have to now again deal with the consequences of your actions. These are the injuries that the qisas can be taken for, and the diyah. Inshallah Azza wa Jal, next week we'll go through the actual amounts of the diyah. We'll go through the actual amounts of the diyah, and then we'll get into the compensation for the injuries, how much is given, and also who is liable to pay it from the person and or their families. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله محمد وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين. Any question about anything that we mentioned, brothers?
تكلمت عن الموضحة.
No.
عفوا الجائفة.
No. مثل الطعن.
طيب جيد.
Any question about anything mentioned, شباب؟ شيخ.
الشهود يعني يقول جيبه قطعوا ايده ما كان معه شهود او هيك.
لا البينة. بدنا نشوف البينة. ممكن يكون كاميرات، ممكن يكون حلف، ممكن.
ما عنده شاهد او
بس بدنا بينات. إذا عنده بينات خلاص قضي الأمر. إذا ما عنده بينات لا. كيف نعرف إنه هذا قطع إيد هذا؟ بدنا نتأكد. البينة على من ادعى. يعني إذا واحد هو ادعى على واحد بده يجيب البينات. في شهود، في كتابة، في تسجيل، في شيء. He's asking if a person transgressed against someone else and there weren't any witnesses. What happens? We said the person needs to bring some type of proof. Just like in court here, you need some type of proof to find the person guilty. Otherwise, if a person was to just say, Wallah, he's the one that transgressed against me, then everyone لَدَّعَ أقوام أموالا ودماء.
الأموال والدماء فالبين على مدعي واليمين على منكر.
نعم لكن آخر الحديث. SubhanAllah, forgot the part of the hadith. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said that without this evidence, then the other people would have claimed the life and the blood of others. Now, if we just take off the words of the people, so there has to be some type of evidence, okay? And depending on the court, then it may be video evidence, it may be testimony, whatever they need. If they don't have evidence, and the person says, Wallahi, I didn't do it. Hey, what are you talking about? Wallah, I didn't do it. And there's no evidence, then khalas, we can't find him guilty. Does that mean that he gets away on the day of judgment? No. That's now between him and Allah Azza wa Jalla and the other person on the day of judgment. But in this dunya, we won't hold him accountable.
الشيخ أحسن الحديث لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم.
نعم جزاك الله خير.
Spoke about this, someone asked from one of the other weeks. Well, say for example, a non-Muslim kills a Muslim, and then right before he is sought for retribution, he takes his shahada, and now he's being sought for retribution. Is he seen at the time of the killing as a non-Muslim or as now?
Well, either way, because he's a Muslim, he can still be killed for killing a Muslim. So, either way, he can still be killed. Allah Alam.
But what if both were non-Muslim?
إلا حقوق الناس إلا حقوق الناس. Ask when we get to it, inshallah.
Why in this book it doesn't say the reference of the hadith?
Because this is كتاب للمبتدئين. كتب الفقه للمبتدئين, very basic. It just gives you the rule. Then you go up and you go up and you go up. Like for example, this for Ibn Qudama, you have like Umdat Al-Fiqh. Umdat Al-Fiqh, he gives you one opinion. His book Al-Kafi, for example, it will give you two opinions in the Hanbali madhab. Then you go up, he give you the opinions with the references. Then you have like for example Al-Mughni. Al-Mughni now he'll give you the difference of opinion or the madhahib with all the adillah. But a simple book like this, he just gives you the opinion.
Sheikh, what if someone cuts the arm in the middle and then the other guy wants to take retribution from this part here? Doesn't work?
No. Khalid.
Maybe you already answered this before.
Sorry, 1 second. Why didn't they do it? Because they couldn't guarantee it. So the fact that you can't guarantee it, khalas, automatically the qisas is dropped.
But it's less.
Automatically the qisas is dropped aslan. The shurut are not there for it to become. It's like an accident. It's like an accident. You know, a person, he accidentally fell into someone, that person became paralyzed. I mean, I don't want him to become paralyzed, but just let me slap him. Just a slap. All I want is to slap him. We say, la, because it's not, the qisas is not wajib in the first place. We can't now cause any harm if it's not wajib.
Is the retribution gender specific? So it needs to be a
No.
man or man?
No. The male and female, they're both, when it comes to here, there's kafa'a. They both get retribution for each other. So if the man injured a female, or the female injured a male, they can both have the injury inflicted upon them.
So if your wife angry with you,
Is everything okay at home? Yeah, if the wife injures the husband, I don't know whose wife, sisters, please make sure you're nice to your husbands. These days, a lot of the injuries can be from the bone, where it doesn't have to be broken. They can cut off.
If let's say a person had one arm and he cut off an arm for a person that has two arms.
We forgot to mention this. If a person cut off the hand of a person or injured the person's body, on the person who transgressed, who caused the injury, they only had one of that. He cut off the right hand of someone, but he's only got one left hand. We can cut off that left hand. My apologies, I forgot to mention this. Another thing that we forgot to mention is when we carry out the retribution, do we give the person an anesthetic, yes or no?
No.
Why? دغري على طول
Another
دش.
guy didn't get the anesthetic when you cut it off.
Good. Okay? Where the point is to get retribution and for it to be just and equal. So unless he gave the other person an anesthetic, then we're not going to give him an anesthetic. We want to cause pain. That's the whole point of this. The whole point of this is to cause pain. Now,
شيخ لكن لو واحد ضرب واحد تاني في وشه فكسر له سنة مثلا التاني يضربه أو المحكمة تضربه في وشه برضه ولا يكسر السنة بس؟
when it comes to the slapping or the hitting, okay, when it comes to slapping or the hitting, the vast majority of scholars say it's not allowed. Why?
You can never do the exact same.
Good, because you can't do the exact same. And how are you going to get the exact same hit or punch or slap that you gave someone else? Okay, you can't. Secondly, it's in the face. The face, you don't get, there's no qisas in. Because if the person, and he slaps someone and hit his tooth, for example, we can take out his tooth, no problem. But if we were to hit him back, some people go blind because of a hit that you give them. Some people will fracture their skull. Different people are different. Especially Abu Dawiyat, Allahumma barik. طيب شباب جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.